Welcome to the MadTech Podcast from ExchangeWire, bringing you the latest news and views from the world of adtech, media, and marketing.
Hello and welcome to the MadTech Podcast. I'm Grania Reid, Head of Events, and I am joined by Lindsay Roundtree, ExchangeWire COO. How are you, Lindsay?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm not too bad, thanks.
Excellent.
And Rachel Smith, ExchangeWire CEO. How are you?
Very well, thanks, G. Delighted to be on the podcast.
Yeah, great to have you. Great. Well, the stories that we're going to be covering this week include Index Exchange's rollout of model drive bidding at scale through containerised DSP development on Index Cloud, as well as Meta, who turns to CTV as a new engine for ad revenue growth. And finally, the News UK that introduced its latest advertising tool. So I'm going to kick off with our first story. Bedrock Platform has debuted the world's first containerised demand-side platform through Index Exchange's Index Cloud infrastructure. The integration introduces a new model for how DSPs host their bidders at scale on the open internet. The move reshapes programmatic buying while preserving the independent roles of DSPs, SSPs, agencies, and media owners. So, Rachel, I'm going to come to you first and ask, what do you think is the most important technical aspect about Cloud Index's infrastructure?
Yep. Okay.
Mouthful of a question.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Who and what now?
Yeah. Lots of clouds, lots of indexes, lots of infrastructures. Well, I think firstly, it's important to say that this was probably one of the biggest industry announcements that we've seen in a long time, not just because we obviously know Index Exchange very well and also Bedrock, but because it's been a while since we've seen some kind of technical innovation at this level that stands to have such a far-reaching impact on the infrastructure layer of the adtech industry. So it was super interesting, super exciting. We might have had a little bit of a heads up beforehand, but, obviously you can't confess to that. From a technical point of view, what's really interesting about this is that it is all focused on trying to make access to DSP infrastructure at scale more affordable. I suppose you could say that it means that it's more affordable from a buyer's perspective, but it's also more affordable from a DSP's perspective in terms of being able to offer that scale to their buyers. So from a technical point of view, it means that the bidding has been moved from outside to a standard DSP infrastructure into being within Index's SSP cloud infrastructure. And in a containerised manner, that makes it cheaper, more efficient, it reduces latency, and it means then that containerised bidder can work on very specific outcomes for buyers in a scaled environment. So the whole premise of this, and Andrew Casale has obviously come out quite a lot in the media over the last week talking about this, more interviews landing in our LinkedIn feeds today as everybody's at Possible in Miami, and we've also heard a lot from Shane Shevlin, Bedrock CEO, on this as well. Anyway, going back to Andrew's perspective, is that the existing infrastructure in the adtech industry has meant that it's become very expensive for adtech infrastructure players to provide this kind of access to brands at scale. You have to invest a lot in cloud infrastructure costs, and you can't necessarily scale associated to a particular buyer's specific outcome quite so easily. This solution tackles that. It means that DSPs can build without needing to have access to their own cloud infrastructure because they're doing it within the container within Index's existing cloud infrastructure. So that saves them cost in that respect. And then it enables buyers to access this containerised performance within the bid stream at scale. So it's something that changes the way that buyers can access inventory, and it changes the cost dynamics both from the DSP's perspective but also from the brand's perspective. And the ultimate outcome is that brands have got broader access to a higher range of bid requests, which enables them the ability to find more valuable users easily in a more affordable way. It doesn't necessarily translate to brands spending less per campaign, but it means that they're likely to get better or more focused outcomes from that particular level of investment. So it's it's a technical development that really changes the bid mechanics and could have a huge impact, certainly for buyers, but also for the way DSPs operate across the open web. At least that's my layperson's understanding.
Well, this is it, right? Yeah.
Because Lindsay, you gave a little bit of a detailed explanation last week as the news had just broke. And obviously, there's been more and more that's come out since then. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, so I've had more time to read up about it, kind of have a think about it and speak to a few more people about it. And I think that for me, the biggest, just to say, I had no idea this was coming before the launch announced, to the point where only a couple of weeks ago, I moderated a panel at Video Week's New Video Frontiers that had both Index Exchange and Bedrock on it. And they spoke about the fact that there was a big announcement coming up, but they could not talk about it. And the panel was on live streaming. And John Tigg from Index Exchange, he was the representative of Index Exchange, head of UK buyer development. And his big thing was in live streaming, the biggest problem is latency. And the penny drops now, for Bedrock and Index. Like, latency in a live streaming environment is such a huge problem. It's such a huge barrier and blocker to being able to effectively monetize in a live stream environment, because the QPS, the queries per second load, is so great that you just can't, certainly for smaller DSPs, you just can't get access to everything you want to be able to actually properly analyze all the inventory coming your way and analyze all the bids coming your way. So you drop loads of stuff. So in a live streaming environment, this is where I feel like, for me, the biggest thing here is definitely QPS and latency, because I feel like that is the biggest blocker for smaller DSPs, smaller independent DSPs, to be able to actually properly compete with the larger walled gardens. And I think that is where, from a buyer perspective, it will enable them to be able to genuinely consider smaller independent DSPs and not have to put all their budget and all their eggs into the larger walled garden DSPs, which is great for a lot of people, because they want to be able to diversify and want to be able to use different types of companies that have access to different things. And Andrew Casale refers to it as this is eliminating the cloud tax, and the cloud tax basically is a blocker for the independent DSPs that haven't got the budget, have to pay so much more to be able to see all these queries. That the scale that the large DSPs already have means they can do that no problem. This opens that up for them massively, and certainly, I think, in a live streaming environment, which is, there's a lot of conversations about how to monetize that more effectively. This is where this model would really, really win and be really exciting and really interesting. There's lots of areas where it's exciting and interesting. From a buyer perspective, I think it's just that it's opening up new opportunities for them to be able to buy in different areas, buy from different people. And buy from different channels like live streaming they might not have looked at before, because it wouldn't necessarily been an option they would look at. But now it raises a conversation about it that makes them kind of go, oh yeah, that's probably something I would want to look at in more detail. But I think, the hope would be, from an advertiser perspective, that you wouldn't notice, like from a plumbing perspective, it's going to be, it's so smooth and it's transactional. It's not something an advertiser should or would care about from a kind of like how it works, but what they will care about is, okay, how to make my campaign better. And that is what the point of this is going to be, will be like latency will genuinely, removing the latency issues will genuinely help improve the quality of their campaigns.
Yeah, and also I felt as though I read a few things around the degree to which existing DSPs sort of have a ceiling on how many queries per second they can ingest. And once that ceiling is reached, then that means that they kind of, there's a technical dropout. So it means that
it's like 20 to 30% of all queries. Yeah,
exactly.
It's a tiny amount.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And due to improving the sort of speed at which you can query, it means now that, more impressions can be seen by the DSP in a containerised environment. And so overall, not only is that a sort of a more efficient transaction, but it just means that buyers that buy through a containerised DSP are actually getting exposure to a higher volume of impressions. Yeah. And so it's potentially improving the outcome for them. And it means as well that then they've got an ability to actually take action based on the targeted volume of impressions that they're exposed to. So it should basically produce better models, better targeting models that make the process more efficient technically for the Adtech layer, but also produce better results for buyers. And so, like Lindsay said, you might not notice on a day-to-day basis that, this is a technical part of the sort of auction that buyers wouldn't necessarily be incredibly drawn into. But if they're overall getting better outcomes from it, then you can imagine them potentially then investing more spend through that particular DSP and building out separate models to target very specific audiences, and it enables them to then do that bit at scale, which isn't really possible through a broad scale DSP, from what I understand.
No, I think that's the point. I think that also what you would find is when you're trying to engage in a new DSP, one of the questions you would ask a DSP is like, what is your QPS load? Like, what can you handle? And often, if that's an important thing to you, which it is to some buyers, depending on what they're buying and in what environments they're buying, certainly in mobile environments and in-app environments, QPS is a very important metric within which you want to be able to analyse and evaluate a DSP. And so this opens up, like I said, a whole new new doors for a lot of people. And Bedrock, it's great that Bedrock got the opportunity to be the first containerised DSP, the first to be part of this with Index Exchange. I wonder how it will open up, how just containerisation in general will open up the floor for other independent DSPs. And I think that what was interesting as well, reading the Brian Weezer, Madison and Wall wrote a really good write-up of it, and his framing was that a lot of the coverage is framing this as a DSP versus SSP conversation. And does that now mean that it's going to be the SSPs win, the DSPs lose? And it's a bit reductive to look at it like that, because this is trying to eliminate something that we've talked about eliminating for so long, which is the tax that kind of means the big players always win and the small players always lose. That makes this genuinely exciting for democratizing what is available within the Adtech ecosystem. And that's what we should be looking at, rather than, it's SSP versus DSP. There's always going to be a war going on, isn't there?
Yeah. Is it then do you think we're going to see a rethinking of that relationship between SSPs and DSPs?
I think the thing is that further to Lindsay's point about democratisation of access via DSPs, I think it's going to potentially encourage more spend into the open internet, because you'll start to see brands getting better results, I would have thought, buying through a containerised DSP versus a regular DSP. So then leading on to your question, G, does that mean there's going to be sort of more of a, if you like, battling it out in terms of control over the advertising value chain between DSPs and SSPs? That could be one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it could be that existing DSPs or, other smaller independent DSPs also want to develop a containerised solution and might therefore go to Index or other SSPs who are in a similar situation to be able to set that up. And I think it becomes then less about a battle between those two pieces of infrastructure and more a matter of how do we potentially work together to encourage more spend into the open internet, because that's where I see the real application for this, right? And if you think about it, being, this piece of innovation being born out of a company like Index, which is independently owned, always focused on supporting independent ad tech, has always been able to clearly articulate the value of the open internet and understand very clearly where that fits into the, sort of programmatic buying chain. I think them sort of spearheading this really speaks to that ethos of there is a way for us to grow this market for everybody. So from an Index point of view, I think it's very much coming from the perspective of look at this new piece of innovation. Of course, it benefits Index as a company, but it also benefits, Bedrock as the DSP that's been able to develop a containerised solution in this instance. But it sets out, an example of how other independent DSPs could work with Index or other SSPs, and keeps that debate live about why it's still important for brands to invest in the open internet, which is important, obviously, for brands and buyers because they're looking to target wider audiences than can often be found in walled gardens, but it's also crucially important for publishers as well. So here's another opportunity for publishers who've still got lots of inventory available in the open internet to see a much clearer path to a better, more efficient transaction. So, yeah, on the one hand, you could see it come down to a battle of, well, who's kind of owning the control for spend here. On the other hand, it's an example of both sides of the advertising value chain working together to enable better quality access to the open internet.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing. Good thing for the industry, good thing for buyers.
Yeah. Well, no, it was a very, very big story, and I'm sure we're going to hear a lot more, and we'll be speaking a lot more over the coming weeks as this news progresses. I'm going to move us on to our second story, which is Meta appears to be laying the groundwork for a move into CTV advertising. According to multiple sources who requested to remain anonymous, Meta has been in talks with supply-side platforms including Magnite and Comcast, as well as TV manufacturers and publishers about how it could access CTV inventory at scale and extend its advertising offerings into CTV. Lindsay, does this news surprise you?
No, it doesn't surprise me. The scale of inventory available in that environment is vast, and I feel like Meta, some of the other areas where they're able to monetize their network is maybe dwindling, and kind of what's the next growth opportunity for them. CTV is where everyone wants to be, short of actually buying a streaming platform or kind of trying to get into streaming themselves by creating one, which I don't see happening, but you never know. Be able to try and monetize their inventory and monetize their very powerful identity graph, I think is a really good logical step for them. And it makes a lot of sense because they can overlay that working with the likes of Magnite, etc., and the OEMs like Samsung. And I never really, because I'm quite basic when it comes to my streaming choices. I do the big streaming platforms. Why don't you rolling eyes at me? Like,
I thought you were going to say you were quite basic in your consumption of TV, and we were going to have another conversation about Love Island, but no.
Do you know what? I've not watched Love Island for years.
Wow,
yeah,
there we go.
I'm totally off it.
Because it's been overtaken by MAFs, or
no,
rather
I haven't watched that for years either.
You know.
Do you know what? I find them all too stressful now.
Well, they
just
are
find them
stressful. I find them very stressful too.
I have just indulged in, and I really do mean indulged, and I was getting angry and I was watching it, Temptation Island on Netflix.
God,
I've watched that.
Which I used to watch the original of it before Netflix bought it. So I've watched every single series that ever existed, and I do like the guy that presents it. He's just an older guy who's
Regular
probably
man.
thinking, what the hell are these 20-somethings up to? This is ridiculous. So I find it amusing for that reason. But I just find them really stressful.
Well, they are stressful because it's basically live TV with people that have got severe mental health issues. Who wants to watch that?
They're just constant car crashes.
Totally.
Yeah, I can't cope with my nerves can't take it anymore. No. So no.
They've signed up to it, so it's fine.
Well, there is that. Yeah, they know what they're getting themselves into. But yeah, so I tend to just watch the big name stream platforms, and I'm a Sky customer, so I watch most of my content through that. But I was at an Airbnb at the weekend, and I couldn't be bothered to log into all the different platforms. There was no terrestrial TV option. I couldn't be bothered to log into all the streaming platforms because I forget to log out again. And so it was a Samsung TV. So I was able to explore the vast array of Samsung fast channels that I've never experienced before. And I ended up getting quite hooked on the Seinfeld TV channel.
Oh, yeah.
I was just watching Seinfeld for about 3 hours.
Yeah.
But I was just amazed at all the different options. And
so
what
much.
amazed me even more was the advertising options, most of which had not been taken. It was empty inventory. So every few minutes you would get an ad break, and there might be like one ad or an ad for another fast TV channel, and then just dead air of Samsung TV will be back soon with some random horrible music. And so the scale of opportunity there is absolutely vast. If Meta want to tap into that, for little idiots like me watching Seinfeld TV in an Airbnb on a weekend with nothing else to do, there's definite huge opportunity for them to get involved, and it makes total sense to me.
I got served with a Trade Desk ad watching Netflix last night.
Did you?
Yeah, which I
I've
thought
had
was
one
really
of them
interesting.
before a few weeks ago.
Yeah, right. Yeah, super interesting. It was quite a good quality ad, but I just was watching it thinking, no one will understand this except if you work in Adtech. But anyway.
Well, that's
to
why you're getting it
double take.
eventually. The targeting is so good.
Yeah.
I really had to double take. I was like, no, surely that's not that. Yeah, it was.
It is.
There's one ad on Netflix that I keep getting served that has no ostensible brand name on it, and it's like some woman with some AI background of like this little robot following her around saying it's something to do with cybersecurity, but as far as I'm aware they've actually forgotten to put the brand on. Genuinely, I've watched it multiple times and gone, no, I'm not missing it, there's definitely no brand in this ad.
Oh, that's
and I've seen
weird.
it so many times.
That is weird.
Yes, it is.
Oh, that's very strange. Yeah.
And at the end, she stands there like, I've done my talking, and I'm going to stand here and smile. And that's
this is
when
the bit where the brand name's supposed to
pop up
appear
and
on-
no brand pops up. So it's just
So
her
I wonder if that's-
sort of smiling at the screen. It's really odd.
I wonder if that's a technical issue.
Yeah, I do. Yeah,
I
wonder
also
that as well.
got served with we're really digressing here, but
We really are. What a tangent.
I also got served with an Adobe Creative Suite ad last night, which was so terrible. Netflix as well, so terrible. It was sort of a really bad, totally naff kind of rap tune, if you could call it that had to be accompanied by subtitles because obviously they're still wanting to get the message across. And I'm just thinking, this is so bad. You're obviously trying to target a particular age
B2B
demographic, but
advertising at its finest.
really
Subtitles?
bad. Yeah, really bad.
Brilliant.
Wow.
Anyway,
I'll bring you
Sorry.
back on track.
yes, thanks, G. We can rely on you for that.
What did you take of this news from
Well, yeah, look, no surprises, I think. I mean, I was thinking about this from a sort of meta business model perspective. I mean, they have to go into some kind of TV environment, right? Because user growth is challenged. Not surprising. Why on earth would new users be signing up to Facebook as a platform? I guess they've got the Instagram angle, but even so, I just can't see it. I think they're going to have persistent issues over the coming years with user retention and user growth. So their core business model's under pressure, ad loads at a maximum. So what else are they going to do? They have to go to effectively fresh environments to make the most of their advertising kind of credibility, really. And it's that powerful data, logged in users. There's lots of creative ways that they could create, that they could offer good quality ad options, I think, across a CTV environment. But it's going to require quite a lot of partnerships because they also don't own any content, right? And like you said, Lindsay, unless they're about to buy some, which made me think as you were saying that, why didn't they bid in that Paramount scenario? Because they kind of would have had the money for it.
That's an interesting
But,
point.
it would be a complete departure from where they're at. But then again, I also think this is interesting from a strategic business point of view because it's such an outdated platform, Facebook. So Instagram's a bit different, but why? At some point, I just feel people have got to surely be less interested in it than they were before. And they are struggling to retain the same level of user growth. And at some point, I expect those numbers to stay stagnant or even potentially reverse. So,
I expect the same.
they invested all this money into the metaverse and that never happened. So
That was a roaring success.
It was a
isn't it?
roaring success. And, they're totally loaded. So why not start thinking about purchasing some existing super, super popular content? And then it also reminded me of all those years ago when they bid for sports rights for, I can't remember what
they
sport
did.
it was.
Was that on their red thing?
Maybe.
That was the what's her name? Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith had like a red. What was it? The
Production company or something.
They had like a weekly show. This thing was during COVID
yeah.
on the Facebook Red. Was it called Red? I don't know, whatever it's called. The people listening will probably have a better idea than any of us talking
Yes.
absolute nonsense.
Obviously.
But, 'cause I remember it was that show where she just kept revealing random stuff about her marriage. We've gone really kind of
We have.
trashy. Can't have us on the podcast again. It's
Yep.
ridiculous.
Yep.
Random stuff about her and Will Smith's marriage. It's like, oh my God, this is not helping Facebook's image at all. But
I don't know what happened. So so they bid for and won the sport, the sort of
did, yeah.
rights to broadcast some sport in the US, and I feel like it was a big sport. It wasn't the NBA, but it might have been the football. I don't know, American football. I mean, anyway, they could have. Perhaps it was too soon. So I feel like it's an area that they could get back into, whether it was via sport or whether it was via some other kind of content ownership. Because I just think they will be, depending on what type of a business model they stuck up there, which could just simply be a way to share Facebook, Instagram user data with either OEMs or other streaming platforms to provide really good quality advertising. That would be the obvious kind of strategic play. But outside of that, the people that are really going to win in the CTV world will be, I believe, content owners, because that's where all the good stuff is. You need the audience.
Well, this is it. And this actually is why Meta are quite smart in trying to partner with the OEMs like Samsung, Fast, because they have the ACR data. They can see exactly who is watching what what time they're leaving it, which the likes of the Adtech platforms can't see that. So if you're partnering with the OEMs
Samsung,
directly,
LG, whatever,
that's going to give you even more data to be able to enrich your graph with, and or if they don't give you direct access to it, to be able to kind of overlay your graph onto it. So it's going to really help. And actually, you talk like us talking about B2B advertising is actually a great space for B2B advertisers to be able to retarget people.
Especially when you get it that right. Like,
yeah, exactly.
I'm not necessarily in the market for the trade
desk.
It's
not too expensive.
No, that's the thing. And I'm not...
Because there's so much supply.
Well, exactly right. Yeah, exactly right. And, it was, the trade desk ad was great. The Adobe ad, not so much. But, arguably in a B2B environment, you pay more attention to the ad because you just think, oh, hang on a minute, that connects to my...
It feels a bit incongruous. You kind of go, that's, you're talking directly to me. I do feel like when I'm a B2B one, I'm like, that is literally talking to me. Whereas most ads, I'm like, oh, that's talking to everyone. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
And obviously, Meta having such experience in the social side of things, do you think this could actually lend to be an experience or an advantage to them in this CTV approach?
Well, I mean, I do think, and that's what I meant loosely when I said earlier on, it will depend on how they stack all of this up. But I think the opportunity there would be to partner, to be able to provide with others, to either be able to provide good quality data for advertisers looking to execute on social media platforms, not even necessarily just Meta-owned platforms, right? And then, of course, be able to do it within their own platforms. I think there's definitely a read across between the level of experience they've got in advertising execution in a social media environment, together with data and together with something around video, although I'm less convinced of their value in video content, but there is something there that I think they could maximise for sure.
Yeah. Interesting. I just had a quick search there for the sporting side of things, although this doesn't sound familiar to me now. UEFA Champions League and La Liga. So they're saying Latin America was UEFA Champions League. And then La Liga in India.
That's interesting.
We can look into this more.
I
That's
felt like
a quick
it was something
search.
I
else.
thought it was in other markets, not in those markets.
And it was quite some time ago. I'm going to say it was even pre-COVID.
Yeah, it was ages ago.
Yeah.
Anyway, great. Well, I'm going to move on then to our next story, which is News UK harnessing the Times first-party data to build a synthetic audience planning tool for advertisers named Times ExplorAItion. And the AI in ExplorAItion is capitalised for AI reasons. The tool will combine multiple data sets, including subscriber behaviour, reader panels, engagement stats, and third-party industry data. Advertisers will be able to use the tool to plan and test campaigns. Rachel, how do you think this is going to benefit News UK?
I mean, I think that this is yet another example of publishers putting as much time and effort into improving the sophistication of the data sources that they've got at their hands in order to be able to convince brands to spend money directly with them, to target their really valuable audiences. And I think it's great. Why wouldn't you be doing this? And I think other publishers, no doubt, are already doing something similar. If not, they'll be contemplating it very soon. I mean, effectively, this is News UK using their already owned data sources. So, logins, surveys, sort of subscriber behaviour, meshing that together with third-party data and then any other external data sources they've got. So therefore using their own first-party data and then sort of meshing that together with other data sources they've got access to, and to be able to prove the value of their audiences, which I just think is brilliant. And what's really interesting about this tool that I quite liked is that it's all about planning. So it's kind of the pre-campaign execution, and the AI nature of it, and perhaps the synthetic, they would argue the synthetic nature of it is that it allows for some kind of simulation of how your campaign would perform within that audience. So I think it's brilliant, and I think every publisher should be doing something similar. And it bleeds in nicely to what we're starting to see on the sell side of the industry with respect to various other tools and innovations to help publishers activate that data or package it up in ways that make it so easy for buyers to connect with it, that it gives publishers more control over sort of supply chain. And I'm thinking about even Nodals.ai, who we had at ATS London last year, and I met with Ali Nur Mohammed recently. I might have mentioned in another podcast. He was talking about how some of the changes they've made to their platform, which is all about basically once a publisher like News UK used this AI tool to do simulation of what campaigns would look like, then Nodal's platform is designed purely for execution and making that as seamless and as accurate as possible. So you can see all of these tools are starting to bleed in to one another and give publishers a real edge in terms of control over, firstly, their most important asset, which is their consumer data, and secondly, over that supply chain. So I think it's a great idea. I'm sure we'll see more publishers doing something similar if they aren't already.
Lindsay, what are your thoughts on this new tool?
Yeah, I agree with everything Rachel said. I think for me, it's about storytelling, and Rachel touched on this. It's the getting in with the advertisers at the planning stage rather than just at the buying stage. And premium publishers need to do that because they are needing to find new ways to be able to get themselves to prove their value, prove their worth. It's becoming more and more difficult. Premium publishers are becoming more and more squeezed. And so what this tool does is help the advertiser, like we said, get in the planning stage and be able to help the publisher be able to tell a story and be able to help the advertiser be able to really understand what their campaign could look like, how it could operate, how it could perform. And it's extrapolating out from actual data rather than just kind of sort of arbitrary planning and forecasting. It's really interesting. In terms of I think the beauty that what news have is that the Times has a really good. They have good numbers. They have a really high level of digital subscribers. They've got a good subscriber base. It is a very, very premium audience. So to be able to use that to be able to tell a story with advertisers is very, very powerful. Any other premium publisher with that level of data, that level of first-party data, again, like Rachel said, should be doing something with it. And this feels like a really good way of being able to enhance your offering to an advertiser, especially an advertiser that is just going and buying and going, I want to buy this, and this. However, through whatever channel they're buying it, it encourages more direct conversations. That's what the publishers ultimately want. And if you're a smaller publisher that hasn't got that level of data, it comes back to actually, if you can do this kind of thing with AI and be able to provide synthetic audiences, I can't say that word, synthetic audiences. It is for
tongue twister.
Certain people.
Yes,
it seems.
yes, I agree.
Don't know why I can't. Yeah. Anyway. It reignites the argument for smaller publishers pooling their data together. Because if they can do something similar to pool their data and be able to go to advertisers directly and say, look what we can do, and this data comes from all these different sources, that's, again, I think quite powerful and could be very interesting.
Because I was going to ask, how much does subscriber scale and growth actually influence the quality of data? So
this is it. Yeah,
the Times have 659,000 digital subscribers, which is actually up 7% in the past year.
Nice.
So yeah,
I think what's interesting about this is that subscribers to strong premium news brands, subscriptions to strong premium news brands are growing globally across Western countries, which I think is really interesting. So there was an article earlier this week about how well The Guardian's doing in terms of growing its subscriber base in the US. So not even in the UK and Australia, where they've already been doing quite well gradually over a number of years, and arguably, especially the UK, a place where their brand has been well recognised for decades. But over in the US, where they did launch, Guardian US a long time ago, nearly 20 years ago, with a bit of a burst, and then sort of departed the market and then relaunched, I think it was around the sort of 2010s, 2011s, departed the market. Now they've been at it for the last couple of years over there trying to build out their subscriber base, and they're doing a really good job of it. And apparently their subscriptions are making more money than, I think it was the Washington Post or something like that, which is, well-recognised US news brands. Yeah. And so I think that speaks to a couple of things. One, people are getting used to paying for news again, which is great. It's It's what we all used to do when newspapers existed.
It's trust, isn't it? Never before
Definitely.
people wanted to be able to make sure their information's coming from trusted media sources, and actually often that means paying for it.
Exactly. And I do believe a part of that is that people are accepting there's a value exchange for that. And because we're seeing it across all channels now, right? So we all understand that we subscribe to streaming platforms, but we might have to consume ads in exchange for that depending on what we pay for. And I think that's now becoming commonplace in a written and display media environment too. And, you know, I always think that my dad is a good market indicator for this. He's an 85-year-old man and a keen subscriber to the Guardian in Australia, and, you know, very focused on the importance of democracy. And if I asked him whether he would be okay to still be consuming ads despite his subscription to the Guardian about 6 or 7 years ago, I think he found that a little bit, annoying, whereas now he wouldn't think twice about it. In fact, if you question him, he'll say, well, they've got to make, they've got to pay their journalists. They have to make the business model stack up. So I just think if you can convince an 85-year-old man that that's how it should look, then you can convince everybody.
Anyone.
Yeah, that's how it should look. So all of that means that I think subscriber data for these premium publishers and any news publishers actually is just getting better and better. You aren't talking about, because we're not just talking also about login walls anymore either. We are talking about genuine subscribers with intent, and so that's giving publishers way more sophisticated data and learning how to use that data in other contexts within your business as a publisher is another really important step to just improving the diversification of your monetization strategies, and then also thinking about how you can either develop or work with others to develop more sophisticated tech tools to kind of monetize that and offer it directly to brands.
Yeah, no, it's really useful. And actually I have some numbers here, which I'm hoping are up to date, which was the Guardian. As you'd mentioned, Rachel, they're leading with 1.3 million paying supporters or subscribers, but that's a global figure. So that's really pretty
strong.
impressive.
That's really strong.
And Telegraph
from a base of zero, right?
Yeah,
it's not like we're talking about how they used to be. If you think about how the business model's been completely upended, they used to sell print and then that went to zero. This is growing that from zero. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Anyway, it's very interesting. We look forward to seeing more about the News UK tool. I'm going to leave it there for today. Lindsay, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And Rachel, as always, thank you.
Thanks very much, G.
And that is it for the MadTech Podcast. Thanks for tuning in.
You've been listening to the MadTech Podcast, brought to you by ExchangeWire.